Welcome to Mimika TV. Get ready to break through barriers, fuel your faith, pursue your purpose, and market your message so you can impact the marketplace for God. Welcome to Mimika TV. I'm your host, Mimika Cooney. Today's guest is another powerhouse, fabulous lady who you are going to love. I have personally met and hugged her in person, and I know her message is going to resonate with you. Ericka James is a talk show host, speaker and trainer, and prophetic strategist. Ericka is the CEO of the Convergence Center LLC, a world-class consulting and training firm, the founder of The Alliance, a training and development organization for businesswomen, and the founder of the Kingdom Ministers Association. She is also the host of her own TV show, the Ericka James TV show, Life on Purpose, a show that inspires, uplifts, and teaches transformational steps to building an extraordinary life and organization. After overcoming years of bullying and the challenges of single motherhood, her testimony is one of triumph, forgiveness, faith, complete surrender, obedience, and an unyielding pursuit of manifesting her potential. Ericka will inspire you to fearlessly fulfill God's vision for your life without fear or hindrances so you can build something extraordinary. So welcome, Ericka. So excited to have you on my show.
So glad to be here. Yay.
Well, I'm so honored because you are a TV host and you know what this is like. So it's so nice to have you in the hot seat for a change. So I get to ask questions.
And it's nice just to show up. You know what I mean? Like, oh, let me just show up today. So
yeah, you just show up and look pretty. You don't have to do any of the behind the scenes. I'll take care of all the production. You can just, just be fabulous because a lot of work goes into these shows.
Yes. And I love all that you're doing. So it's just my pleasure to be here.
Oh, excited. Well, you have such a wonderful message. And I said, congrats on the TV show, because that's something new but exciting. And I know, as I said, how much work goes into producing these things. And you have such a passion for things that are close to my heart, which is a lot of things of leadership and finding your purpose and really pursuing things fearlessly.
Yes.
So we can really align ourselves with God's idea and plan for our life. But before we get into the content, tell our audience a little bit about you and how you got started doing what you're doing today.
Oh, that's so good. So I am actually from Washington State, the Seattle area, just outside of Seattle, and grew up in an extraordinary family. So it was normal in my life to see my parents on TV or, oh, where's mama? Oh, okay, she's at the school board meeting and they're broadcasting it right now on TV. And you'd be like, okay, well, I guess I need to get dinner ready for myself. Like that was completely normal. Grew up in a successful entrepreneurial family. So that side of my life in terms of mindset, in terms of tenacity, in terms of entrepreneurship, that was set in me probably at the age of 5 when I started working at my parents' business. I was 5 years old and could put together a workshop packet. And so that was ingrained in me. This other part of my life was, dealing with my peers, being one of very few Black young people there, getting racially bullied, all of that. And so I got to see the side of people that needed work and the side of people that I could help, not have those issues. And so when I was 12, I got involved in leadership. It was actually my big sister who said, you're really good with people. You should run for office. And I remember being scared, going, what? These same people that have been bullying me, I'm going to stand in front of them and do a speech. And I had this moment, and I was 12 years old. No joke. Like, I was speaking and I don't remember what I said to this day. All I know is the entire student body was doing a standing ovation. And I realized in that moment that there was something about the words that we can speak. There's something about, moving people to action. And so I got started in leadership really young. And then the day I turned 18, I went and got a business license so I could start my business. So it's always been around purpose. It's always been around leadership, and it's always been around business. And that led me into developing my own workshops and seminars throughout college and speaking and training. I was in college. My mom would always say, you are there for school. Because I'm like, oh, I'm traveling to so-and-so to speak at this conference this weekend. And got into television really early. Always did radio. When I was 17, the Lord promised me my own show. And so all of these years later, to see everything come together has been magnificent. And I've been, building courses. It's all about training and really helping people become the fullness of who God created them to be, and then build something, not just feel great, not necessarily build someone else's vision, but what did God put in you to really change things in the earth? And so I started the Convergence Center. Then I started the Alliance, which was specifically for business women, and also Kingdom Ministers Association, because I started receiving these deep revelations. And so I get to dance pretty seamlessly across all of those. And then recently just launched the Ericka James show, Life on Purpose.
Well, that is amazing. I just love your story. We're like sisters from another mother, because I was also at 5 years old answering the phone, and my parents are always entrepreneurs. Hello. And the funny thing is that my dad named the business after me. So I thought I was the boss. So
I know that's right.
Like,
you're like, well, this is my
name.
thing. Yeah.
Like, hello, it's mine. And I love that idea. It just brings back memories, like it's just amazing how even like how you can have such an eclectic background, but God uses everything. Like even that you said that vision or that dream of having a show when you were 17. And I think this is sometimes we lose track of focus. Is God might give us a promise, but we do have to work it out. Or maybe there's things we've got to do. I'm like, yeah. And we're like, why would God not want, has God forgotten about me, or what's going on? But sometimes there's a few things that need to happen. So I love what you're doing and how you've so seamlessly been able to marry the ministry with the business, because, we talked about this before we hit record, is I love the whole concept of marketplace ministry.
That's right.
And I think it's shifted a lot in the world, in that we realize you don't have to be a pastor on a church on a Sunday to reach people. You can reach people exactly where you are, in your office, in your business, in what you're doing, because that's what Jesus did, really. He picked up his bag and he went to the people. He didn't like say, hey, I'm going to build a church on the corner of Nazareth Lane and Bethlehem Square. Right. If you want to meet me here on
just
Sunday.
Come on by. We've got 6 services. Just pick one. Yeah, it's really true. And one of the things that I am really drawn to is, really building outside of that church structure. And the truth is that there's 5 levels of God's government, and pastors are only in the second. So most of the work happens outside of the territory of the building that pastors are assigned to shepherd. And so the work is really, it's really critical to get it out there. So I feel you on that.
Oh, definitely. And I think we're on a mission.
Yes.
I tell you, this is your call to action. If anyone's been wondering, what do I do with my life? I can tell you, Ericka's going to give you some real good nuggets. So if you're going to got a pen and paper, you better get this going, because I know, as well as from a prophetic side, you know how to speak into people's lives. And I've been on your email list, and I've just been encouraged, like, yes, I can do this.
Oh, yay.
So let's dive into some really actionable content. So like if someone is sitting and thinking, like, they know that, times have changed, they shifted, that maybe they have a business idea, or they want to launch a product, or they want to write a book, or they have some burning desire to do something, but they know God is calling them to the marketplace, and how do we find that clarity out of the chaos, right? Because we talked about how there's so much noise now. How do we just find that peace and understand what we're hearing is from God and what we need to do?
Yeah, that's so good. The first thing that I want to tell people is the wait is over. No more waiting. So we're waiting for something else to take action. But here's the truth. God already placed it inside of you. And what gets confusing is looking at what this person's doing, what that person's doing. You're like, oh, I could do this. I could do that. Well, that looks fun. But it really takes getting still and realizing that it was stamped inside your DNA. And if you can just get still and begin to tap into what is it that you are called to do? What would you do if you could make money any way you could? And asking yourself those key questions, the answer is just right there. But the key really isn't looking from the outside in, it's looking from the inside out, and taking time to say, okay, let me just go back before life happened with all the obligations. And one of the things we do as women is we define ourselves by the role and responsibilities in our lives. So oftentimes I talk to women, it's like, okay, tell me about yourself. Well, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I have this many grandchildren. And it's all about roles or relationships. And I want to remind us that before all of that, before we became mothers, before we became wives, before all of that, there was a predestined purpose on our lives. And so you have to go beneath the roles, beneath the responsibilities that keep us so busy every day and the obligations. And it's right there. It's sitting there. And if we could just tap into that wellspring, and it takes quiet time and it takes some time to ponder. and just really praying and say, okay, reveal it to me. What would it look like? And it also helps to see it. If I could create my ideal life, what would it look like, in the full manifestation of the vision? And then you just begin to back it up from there. But it's I want people to know it's in there. No more waiting. It's time to get started. And we'll give you some tools on that.
Exactly. If you're looking for a neon sign, ding, 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 this is it, right? Today's
the day. Now.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's the thing is, wouldn't you say, especially with women, we're always asking for someone's permission to start. Like, you don't need someone else's permission if God has already ordained you. And the other concept is God calls, he equips the called. He doesn't call the equipped. In other words, you don't have to have some major PhD behind. So yes, some do. But going back to what you were saying about when you were younger and God plants those seeds of those ideas, like if someone has felt like, well, I had a dream once of writing a book, or I had a dream I really want to be an entrepreneur, but, because of my parents or whatever, I got into medical school. Like, let's just use as an example, I'm pretty much in an environment where I feel like I am a fish out of water. I shouldn't be here, because that tug, right? Where it's like, oh, something inside of you saying it's either time is up, or time to move on, or time to let go. How would you help somebody shift from that, like almost being on the fence of how do I then shift into this next thing? Do they stop doing things? Do they start doing things? Like, what would you say?
So I'll tell you what I did, because I raised my daughter as a single mom, which felt like a detour. I mean, I was still building businesses, but it was nothing like full throttle of what I knew I was supposed to be doing. So I said, okay, know what season I'm in, first of all, so I can have peace and be present. And then start the foundational building, where you still have that end in mind. This is where I'm going. And even though I've got a few more things on my plate right now, and I can't go, full time in it, all the time like I'd like, keep that end in mind. And then again, you mentioned it, but you do not have to ask permission to be who God already created you to be. And so it's really about knowing that your life experience has equipped you. And then you start to take action. And I always say to people, get 80% there and then put it out. Like, businesses don't wait until it's perfected. They just do a second version, a third version, an upgrade. And so get it out there. You can always clean it up in the process. So I commit myself to what I call continuous quality improvement. Get it out there and keep making it better. We're going to stumble. We're going to fall. But if you don't practice and start showing up, that's just it. The other thing I would say to people is make a list of your questions. What often stops us is, I don't know how to do that. Well, I don't know how to do something can no longer be an excuse not to do it. We know in the insane world of entrepreneurship, we don't know how to do half of what we do. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know. Otherwise it would have been.
We're all winging it.
We have no clue. And so really take that off your list of excuses. If you don't know how to do it, it means now I need to get the know-how or find somebody with that know-how. And in this age of information, there's just no excuse, because you can just about Google anything. And so then the next challenge I see that people have is time. So once you're like, okay, I'm clear, I'm not going to wait anymore, I'm going to get started. Then it's like, how do I structure this? So I don't end up working my purpose like a hobby. And when we're in the job world, there is inherent structure. So, be here at X time, these are your breaks, these are your lunch times, and these are these things you do in that time. And I always tell people, when you're getting started, set up visionary office hours, where you let your family know, you get support, whatever it looks like. You may have to go get an office, go to a coffee shop, a hotel lobby, but these are the times you are going to start to work on your business. And when you're first working on that, you're just researching, you're getting answers to the questions that you have. But time structure is critical. Otherwise, you look up in a day, a week, a year, 2 years, 3 years has passed because you never put structure to it. So put visionary office hours to it. And the most amazing thing happens when you start to show up and you've cleared away the other stuff. This is just time for your vision. It starts to come forth because you know what to do.
Oh, I tell you, that is so true, right? And it's like you say, and I've heard this before, time is the one commodity we don't get more of. We all have the same amount, and how we use it is important, which is the point of stewardship, right? God is like, I'm going to give you, but what you do with it is important. So how we invest in that And I love, from a practical perspective, like I've even had to do this because I can get a little squirreled, like, oh, what's that for shiny object? Is making an appointment with myself. And my drives my husband nuts. I'll say, like, when I'm busy, my phone's on mute. I don't, like, you can't contact me.
Yeah.
And sometimes we need to be that fierceful and fearful. Like, say, I am going to make this time. And it's amazing how productive you can be in a short amount of time that's not distracted.
It's really true. That is such a key. And we don't understand, like we're always doing, let me get clear about my purpose and my identity. All of that's good, but that's only half of the equation. You've got to execute. So that time piece is, I'm fanatical about time. So
exactly.
So I get it.
And that's when you look at, like, as a practical example, I don't know if you've heard the story about Steve Jobs, that he always wore a black turtleneck and jeans because he says, I do not want to waste any mental energy in the morning thinking about what I need to pick out to wear. All his clothes are the same. He says, I know my time and my energy is limited, and where I put that energy needs to be productive.
That's exactly right.
I mean, that's kind of a little, like, real extreme, but we don't have to be that extreme, but at least we think of, where can we pull it in? Now, I know from what I've seen and I've observed, and I really the sense that I'm also getting there's been so much like noise, but yet, and you alluded to it earlier about, trying to find the right fit. It's like trying to wear someone else's shoes, and they're ill-fitting. They're going to give you blisters that are going to feel so great, and the journey ain't going to feel that comfortable if you walking someone else's path. What would you say to that if someone else is feeling like, okay, how do I find what's me and what's mine?
Well, I think the first thing is to realize that out of the 7 billion people on the earth, you are different. And I think we need to do the work to figure out what makes us different. You can line up people with similar callings, but our experiences, our, the lessons we've learned, the heartbreaks we've gone through, the triumphs we've had, they are different than anybody else's. And you've got to embrace and own that. And once you do that, then you start to get clear about your message, who you are. And again, you're not, I call it duct taping. You're not duct taping your identity together based on what other people are doing, but you're actually clear about the inner work so you can just express it in the world, find the right platform, find your words. And so really, I always say it, we've got to look within. You cannot define yourself on the outside, because sooner or later it's going to crumble. And I've seen it over and over again, where it's like, oh, but they did this and they built that brand really fast, but they didn't do the self-work. When it got tough, when the circumstances got tough, they were able to be derailed completely off, or it fell apart because their sense of self was an act and it wasn't authentic. And so I cannot say enough, do the work, be clear about who you are. Make sure you're not carrying past wounds and hurts. Get clear about what you have to offer the world, and then get busy executing.
Definitely. I love that. Execution is the big difference, because often we see successful people, like, and we say, oh, well, aren't they lucky, or they did that. That must be something. Right. That was just, oftentimes it's just that they got up and did the work. Like most brands and businesses, like even Microsoft and Apple, they weren't the original inventors with they just copied or reinvented or adjusted. But at the same time, as us as individuals, like, it's so true. I've coached a lot of women in this instance where so-and-so did this and they did this branding and this email funnel and this website and that looks good. But if it's not you, right, authentically you, right, it eventually, and it's the same thing we see with, people who either win the lottery or these celebrities. We see, we think they're so lucky they shoot up and become famous, but then eventually a few years later, they don't have the maturity or the character development to really hold through.
It's really true. They didn't develop the capacity and the experience, and, pressing yourself and challenging yourself builds capacity. And there's been several projects that early on in my career I was hired to do. I was hired to help somebody write that book, or I was hired to help somebody build that website. And I realized that when I do that work for people, when I do the thinking for them, when I do that work, I'm actually disempowering them from going through the process of building their own capacity. And something I wanted to say earlier, I want to circle back to. How do we begin to quiet the noise? This is another way that we can do this. Start to process and make decisions through joy.
So what sparks joy, right?
it's really what brings you joy. You can, the whole what sparks joy, but in your life, what would bring you joy? And it's amazing how many of us are doing things every day that bring us no joy. And so I started to redesign my life, after it's like, okay, wait, the kids are grown, the marriage is solid. I can run. Okay. What this next season is going to look like is it's based on my joy. And if it does not bring me joy, I'm shifting it, outsourcing it, or stopping it. So whether it is, does it bring me joy to have a meeting at this time? No, I'm really not even good to go until 11 a.m. So why do I keep trying to do 9 a.m. meetings? This is not bringing me joy. Or it could be, just what in my business, what in my ministry is going to bring me joy to do. And once you start to filter through joy, it helps you cut through the noise and okay, this is my niche. This is my lane. This is where I shine. This is what I was created to do. Let's figure out many plans to manage the rest.
Because that is part of the issue, is that we have so much coming at us, so much noise and so much confusion. And, I'll admit I'm a course junkie too. I have a course graveyard that I never really get through because I'm thinking so-and-so did it, so let me figure that out. But eventually it's like my husband described it to me the other day. He says, you're a fat sponge. Okay, most women would get offended when their husband calls them fat, but he says, you have so much knowledge, it's time to squeeze the sponge. Stop absorbing and grabbing and learning, and you need to put it out there. You need to squeeze it so someone else can drink from the goodness that you have. So if you are a fat sponge and you need a little squeezing, let today be a little bit of a squeeze and a reminder that we need to push through and say, what do I have in me that needs to come out, right? Yeah. So this process, and you mentioned the word a few times, execution. Let's talk about that for a bit, because I think sometimes it sounds great, but what would you say in terms of helping somebody get to that stage where they can execute without the doubt?
Well, so the without the doubt precedes the execution. So being fearless and operating in what I call belief, because belief inspires, activates, and informs the action. So it's not about forcing the action in fear or forcing the action because you really don't believe you can finish this book, or you don't believe when you finish it, anybody's going to want to hear about it. You've got to work on the belief first. And I define belief as 100% certainty. You need to be as certain as you can possibly be that the world needs this, that there are people out there that will pay for it. There are people that will show up to listen to you share it. There are people that will use that product. And you've got to practice stretching your mind every single day so you believe. Once you believe, it becomes easy to execute. So if you're finding yourself having to push too hard and I got to make it happen and I'm not getting to it, I'm procrastinating, you've got to go back and say, wait, do I even believe it's possible? Because a lot of people live in hope. We hope it's possible. We wish it's possible. But do you know that you are capable and that people are going to want what you have? And so work on that belief. And then most women are natural list makers. And, we write everything down. And our task list is 500 things long, but our time probably only has time for 5 of those things a day. So I really tell people, once you are in belief, just brain dump, write down everything that you know to do, whether or not you know to do it, that needs to be done, and then begin to prioritize that, what needs to be done first. And that will help you create that task list or that project list. And then the second thing is don't just keep a task list and then track your appointments like you mentioned. I actually create appointments for each task to be finished. And then the other thing I see that misses and lacks so much, it sounds so basic, but we don't have measurable goals. So we often mistake projects as a goal. So the goal is not to finish the book. The goal is not to get the website up. That is a project to get you to something. So the goal is to make X amount of dollars this year, or to sell this many copies, or to book this many speaking engagements, or whatever it is. And so we actually don't have sound goals. And I spend an incredible amount of time saying, okay, I know you want to build goal number 1, a profitable business. Wait a minute, what does that mean? Or you want to make a difference in women's lives, or you want to, whatever that is. And so having measurable and specific goals so you know how to break it down is huge. And so, if you want to make $100,000 in the next 12 months, these are the things that you need to have in place to be able to do that. And I'm always surprised at how most people think they have goals, but they're projects or they're tasks, or they're a dream. They're not measurable.
It's kind of like hope marketing, right? You put it out there and you hope that it works.
Right. I hope that it works. I want to be successful in business. No. You've got to measure that. And once you do that, you add the belief to that, you get that goal, you start executing with that time. You're unstoppable.
Well, the gift of clarity, I'll tell you, and this is something I had struggled with for years, especially I've had several businesses. I had like 3 businesses that I've owned in different markets. And it's hard to make the pivot and the shift, but you have to realize that you just have to do this groundwork. And I can look back and I can know that when I got ahead of myself or got ahead of God, and he's like, I want you to do that. And I'm already running down the road. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, I haven't given you the instructions.
Can I finish the sentence? Yeah.
Yes. I'm like, because this is one thing, the other flip side of being us go-getters who want to just get out there and do. It's like ready, fire, aim.
Really true.
So I think that is, it's really helping just to, and I know sometimes some of us might roll our eyes and go, ugh, I've heard this before. But I think sometimes we need to be reminded, because we need to be able to put the right pieces.
Yeah.
It's like building a house, right? You can't put the roof on until you've got the walls up. So if we had to sort of think about, I know there's so many avenues that go into this, and I love what we've covered already. If you had to sort of wrap it up into like one takeaway tip for everybody today, what would you say you want them to go ahead and do today to really action what you've said?
I want us to learn how to quiet the noise, to begin to give yourself space to hear yourself think. I don't care if it's a pillow in a closet, but there has to be a space, a time that you just quiet the noise, make sure everybody's taken care of, and do you. And it starts with checking in with your heart, checking in with your belief, thinking through what are the things that God placed in me? What am I great at? And then you can get up and execute. Because if you don't know those things, if you don't take that time to think deeply, to think strategically, then you're building the roof before the foundation. And so it's really important. And then the other thing I would say is trust that God has already placed the answers inside of you. Most of us don't know how to tap into it, but they are there. If he gave you purpose, he gave you a blueprint to do it. And the blueprint is not outside of you, it is inside of you. But it does require time to just sit, to think, to process, and to feel.
And that can be a hard work, especially when you are got a little ants in your pants, like some of me that I know, that to sit still, because sometimes we equate sitting still and thinking to inactivity, almost like we're not being useful or productive. But sometimes it's more productive to stop. Like here's an actual example of I always think that these things happen in the physical to manifest what's happening in the spiritual. Like the other day, I was driving on my merry way, thinking I was going at the speed limit, and I got pulled over for a traffic ticket. And I was like, what is going on? I think I'm going at the right speed. And the guy's like, you didn't see the sign. And, it's one of those areas that go from 35 to 25 to 35 in the space of 2 seconds. But because I was so focused on one area, I wasn't paying attention to my surroundings. And eventually we get a fat wake-up call, like, time to slow down.
That's good.
You're going in the wrong direction. And sometimes I'm like, oh, Lord, what? And he's like, what's the lesson here? It can be ouch. It can be painful, right? When we get challenged in these things, like to admit that we're wrong and maybe something has to change. So such great nuggets. Good. Oh, I tell you all, Ericka, I so appreciate it. So I know there are people listening right now who are maybe feeling like, okay, I understand that you said there's something in me. How do I activate that? Would you be willing to pray for them and just really stand in agreement with them, just to really help them move into to execute what God's showing them and what's in them?
Absolutely. Oh, so Heavenly Father, we come first and foremost today, thanking you and praising you for who you are. that you are a God that loves us, that created us, that knows us and put purpose and definition for our lives in us before we were even placed in our mother's wombs. And so we say, thank you that there is a purpose over my life. And we just ask, Lord, that you stir it up in each of us. So we don't have to look on the outside anymore, but it can stir up. And in that moment of revelation, reveal who you created us to be and what you created us to build. And Lord, I just thank you that we are remembering how amazing, how extraordinary, how dynamic, and how powerful we are. And right now we look over, we transcend those circumstances and those obligations. And Lord, just show us how to find the time to tune into your frequency in the name of Jesus. And so right now, I just really just speak peace over us. I speak belief over us. I speak certainty in who you were created to be and what you were created to build. So right now, belief activate. And for those of us struggling with belief, Lord, help us with our unbelief. But we ask that you reveal ourselves to us in the name of Jesus. And Lord, we'll be most careful to do what it is, those things that you have called us to do. And so we just call forth that supernatural activation right now in the name of Jesus.
Amen to that. Tell you to grab hold of that. What Ericka said is definitely a word of prophetic declaration, which means you can grab it. It doesn't matter about whether you feel like you're there. You can, as an act of faith, say, I believe that this is what God wants from me. And it's the matter of just visualizing yourself stepping over that obstacle and saying, okay, I've arrived. What do we do next? Let's roll up our sleeves and get going, right? Because there's work to do. We've got stuff to do. We're all holding on to goodness.
And no looking back to define yourselves. No looking back. What you've been through has equipped you, looking forward, and it's time to move.
Gee, I tell you, well, amen to that. I so agree with this. So exciting. It's like, get me going. I tell you, we'll start doing all these somersaults before we know. Well, Ericka, I so appreciate you spending your time with me today. But tell everybody, what's the best place they can connect with you and find all your great resources you have online?
Yes, the best place is the Ericka James Show.tv. And I spell my name Ericka. So it's the Ericka James Show.tv. You can see that's kind of the portal, and it will have everything else that we need to go through and links to the courses and all that stuff that we are developing.
I've been on your email list and find it very encouraging. So I'd make sure that everyone does that today. Go and sign up for her fabulous resources and watch the Ericka James Show.
Yeah.
It's so exciting to see how this come to fruition. And I'm going to say for everybody who's listening, if you've enjoyed what we've had to say today, make sure to share it with your friends. I'm sure you know at least somebody who would really benefit from this encouraging word that Eric has shared. So make sure to click the buttons on whatever platform you're watching or listening on. And add your comments. I'd love to hear from our audience. Like, what are you thinking? Any aha moments, any words of inspiration? We would love to be able to connect with you. And then, of course, if you want more free resources that I only share with my newsletter community, go to mimikacooney.com, and we have ebooks and courses and lots of great goodies there too. So I'm going to say thank you so much, Ericka. I so appreciate it. And you're such a busy lady, so I appreciate you squeezing us in your busy schedule. But I look forward to all the wonderful things, and hopefully we get to meet in person again and maybe spend a little more time than just a few minutes now and again, right?
Absolutely, we will do that.
That'll be awesome. Well, everybody have a wonderful, blessed day. Until next time, take care.
Are you ready to get unstuck? Come join our coaching program, Unstick Your Mind and Unlock Explosive Growth. Sign up today at mimikacooney.com/unstick your mind.